I saw 12 new movies in the month of September, sort of. Today, we're going to rank them. What's up, Flick fans? September had some good, some bad, and everything in between. Today, we're going to discuss these movies, all 12 of them. It's a little bit of a caveat because one of these isn't new, but I just saw it, so I want to talk about it. Hey, I make the rules here. Let's just throw in Oppenheimer, because I can. Plenty of movies I missed, of course. I need your thoughts down below. What's the best and worst movie of September? Let's get into it. We're starting with, I believe, the first film I watched this month, and I think I technically watched it last month, The Long Walk, based on the Stephen King novel, a novel that I really didn't know anything about, starring some really talented actors. A menacing Mark Hamill, Charlie Plummer, David Johnson, and Cooper Hoffman. Johnson and Hoffman are outstanding, and I said this in my review. Johnson absolutely steals the show, with Hoffman giving an incredible kind of lead performance, but at the same time I'd call them co-leads. But this is a movie about a bunch of guys who sign up to walk until they die. I am not joking. If you're skittish, don't watch this. Tough to watch a guy start taking a crap in the middle of the walk. You see everything in this movie because these guys, I mean, they literally have no choice but to keep walking, keep marching, and they are encouraged to do so based on this society that they live in, this very weird sci-fi-ish vibe that makes you want to know more about the world that they are living in. Unfortunately, well, I would say fortunately, the movie focuses on the current circumstances, and I like the fact that it didn't really waste time on some things that do matter, but maybe it didn't need. And I loved it. I got emotionally attached to these characters. Brutal, very hard R rating. Obviously, you're going to see a lot of death and feces and some crazy things happening on this gorgeous walking trail, but it's filmed immaculately from the director of The Hunger Games. It has those vibes, absolutely, but at the same time, it's a character's journey, a story that I see a lot of people finding themselves engaged in, so I'm going The Long Walk. We're starting strong. Awesome tier. Go from the first movie I saw this month to the film I literally just watched this morning to put it on this list, The Man in My Basement. When my wife's friends ask her to describe her husband, that's what she tells them. He's just the man in my basement. It's not right, honey. Corey Hawkins plays Charles, who agrees to rent his basement to a mysterious stranger, unaware that he may be letting in a force much darker than he imagined. That force is played by Willem Dafoe. And so automatically, two really talented actors, and I love the performances here. Dafoe is going to give that semi-menacing but also questionable, mysterious performance that you expect. And even though the first 30 minutes of this movie happens prior to Charles letting Willem Dafoe inside of his basement, I was waiting on something to happen that was intriguing and engaging, and we kind of teased what was going to happen, the fact that he needs money, he's facing some difficult circumstances, he's lied to those around him, and you get some revelations as this movie progresses, some of that spawning from just Willem Dafoe's presence. I'm going to keep saying Dafoe. I know he has a name, but he's Willem Dafoe. And then obviously it gets more interesting as we get these conversations between the two. Why is he here in the first place? Why the circumstances of this entire situation? Is there something more at play? And yes, you get that menacing feel of there's something underneath that you're just waiting to peel back those layers and figure out what the exact intentions are. And that's how I felt for the middle portion of this movie. I was engaged. Anytime he would go down to the basement, I'm like, I like these conversations. I enjoy the sequence where they start asking each other questions, but every time he leaves the basement and we're getting the things that are happening above ground and his struggles with money and family and heritage, it felt like it was trying to say something, like this movie had something to say, obviously, but the way it was conveyed was such a mishap, completely botched, not entertaining, not engaging. I couldn't latch on to anything happening above ground, and then every time we came back down, I'm like, oh, this is cool, but it could have been a short film, or it could have been one episode of a series. Like, it didn't need to be a movie, because everything else happening, I'm not going to say it's nonsensical, it just wasn't getting the point across to the audience like it intended, so the movie falls flat. Honestly, it's competently made from a visual standpoint. I enjoyed the suspense in a way, but the script is unable to handle the potential complexity of these characters, and because of that, I have to say this was a huge disappointment. The two performances, again, really good. I'm a huge fan of Corey Hawkins, but not enough to put it any higher than the bad tier. The Conjuring Last Rites. As a massive fan of the first two movies, as a massive fan of like one or two of the spin-offs, overall, this universe has been a big misfire, and ever since that second film, and not that I'm a guy who's going to sit here and pick on Michael Chavez, he just doesn't have the sauce that James Wan has. And even though this fourth film is closer to the first two than the third. Does that make sense?
Nope.
Closer in terms of story. It feels like they're trying to imitate those moments without delivering on said story, and so I would actually put Conjuring 3 above Conjuring 4 because at least number 3 being a little different was more interesting. This one tries to do the big family story at the house, but instead of focusing on that family, it focuses on our family that we've been following along, which on paper could be great. Ed and Lorraine Warren, amazing, consistently giving some of my favorite performances ever in any horror franchise or series of movies, and they're just as good in this film. But it's dealing a lot with their daughter Judy and her boyfriend and kind of how they're trying to get them to maybe take the reins and all of the things that she's dealing with. But then we try to do the family thing, but we don't really get to the family thing until the final 30 minutes of the film, and so it feels like it's trying to be two movies in one, and those two things just can't combine into something that feels... It doesn't feel thorough? Is that the word? I'm going to keep it in. It doesn't feel tight? No.
That's what she said.
My wife's just standing at the top of the stairs. She heard me. She heard me say it doesn't feel tight. I'm sorry. It's not poorly made. Some of the scares are fine. I do like the conclusion as a whole and where they take the Warrens, but overall, I was expecting a little more. Actually, I kind of wasn't, but I'm still going mad tier. The Strangers Chapter 2 is a pile of poo. What is up with second movies in a franchise being awful this year? I thought The Old Guard would be far and away the worst sequel, but this one's competing. I mean, the more I think about The Strangers Chapter 2, I'm like, what an unnecessary but potentially necessary, yet the execution made it unnecessary movie in a franchise that I could care less about. And I don't hate the 2008 movie, but we got The Strangers Chapter 1, and it was just trying to retread what we had seen before, except everything about it was worse. This time they're trying to do something different, give us an idea of who the strangers are, why they do what they do, when the whole point of it is like, we just chose you because you're random. That's what they said in the 2008 movie. But in this version of that, they're like, we're going to just dive into the details. The unwarranted, unwanted, unnecessary details, yet the people in charge of this franchise think it's something that we want to see. Think it's necessary. Okay, well, let's go away from the strangers after the first act and give us, like, the Revenant with this girl. It's so dumb. And the CGI looks terrible. They opt not to show it for most of that, whatever that was, the chase, the hog chase. But once we see it, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they didn't do it. And they opt not to show us all throughout this movie, like some of the kills, some of the potentially really cool things. And I appreciate when a film does that sometimes, but in an uninteresting movie otherwise, you got to give me something. Give me something. The girl's good. The lead performance is good. I would look her up. I don't care that much. This franchise is awful. This movie's awful. I wanted this to be good so bad. I'm thinking producer Jordan Peele, and I feel like a lot of people were confused because I kept getting comments. People were like, well, Jordan Peele, this, and this. And I'm like, guys, he's just a producer. Like, I understand they are marketing it on purpose with his name on it, but he's not the director. I guarantee he had very little input on this movie. They're just slapping his name on it and saying, it'll sell tickets. Unfortunately, the movie's just not that good. I think it looks great. It looked great in the trailer, and I'm a huge sports guy. I like the concept of like, okay, we're going to trade our soul to be the best sports guy or girl. Like I said in my review, it's the story of Tom Brady, because I'm sure that's what he did. And so we get to see that play out real time in this fake NFL that they've got going on. But this was just a repetitive series of nothing. I'll say this. You get brownie points for putting Tim Heidecker in your movie. Julia Fox, for what she's doing, the character she's playing, she is good, even though that character, I'm just like rolling my eyes the entire time she's on screen. Marlon Wayans is really good. I don't want to fault him, and he had something really interesting to say about critics on his Instagram that I really respect, man. I just love this guy, and I continue to love this guy, and I want to see him do more work like this because I enjoyed his presence in this film. Unfortunately, the script just didn't really do him any favors. It didn't do Tyreek Withers any favors. And while Withers is actually really good, I do feel like the story tried to get him to do some things that he couldn't quite convey because he doesn't truly have that star power. But that's not taken away from him. He was good. And so That worked. The visuals worked. It's the story and the script. A whole bunch of repetitive nothingness to where he's going through all of these different things and tests to try to be the best and overcoming this concussion, this injury that kind of knocked him out. But what it's trying to say, and then all of the different themes it continues to bring in as we're going, I'm just like, unnecessary. It could have been necessary if the script would have been better. That's probably too kind for this movie with my score. I'm going bad tier. The Senior, the story of Mike Flint, played by Michael Chiklis. Why do we not get more Michael Chiklis? Like, I love this dude. Obviously, he's a big TV presence. I grew up with him as the Thing in the Fantastic Four, but I want to see more of him in movies. He was really good in this film, playing Mike Flint, the guy who goes back to college, gets to live out his dream. He's got some unfinished business by returning to his alma mater and playing football, man. It's a 59-year-old guy. Now, there's some things going on. Obviously, we get a little bit of that, and it's some of these very generic tropes, like flashbacks to his childhood, his relationship with his dad, why he was fighting so much when he was playing, why he got kicked off the team in the first place. But then you see this comeback story, which is, I believe, a great, true, honest comeback story. And this movie is very honest. Say what you will about some of the performances. You can tell some of these actors maybe aren't as legit, but I do think it does a really nice job of treading above water in those ways and delivering a compelling story about a guy who just believes in himself enough to go back and achieve his dreams that at 59 should not have been possible. This is almost an impossible true story, but he didn't. And he didn't break into a million pieces when he played football at 59 years old. That's the amazing part for me. Look, there's some cheesiness. It's a very generic type of football movie in a way, but at the same time, it's true. And from what I've read, a lot about what this movie does is very true because of the people involved. And so that was actually really cool to see. That was kind of refreshing. I love a good football movie. The football sequences are actually pretty cool. I enjoy when movies get those right and don't completely botch them. But at the end of the day, it didn't do much cinematically to move me in an incredible way. But I had a nice time with it. So I'm going The Senior, a better movie than him, on the okay tier. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. Kogonada is our director. I'm actually a big fan of Kogonada's. I want another movie like Columbus. That's what I was hoping for here. Colin Farrell, Margot Robbie. I thought the trailer was nice. Like him, big fan of the trailer. Not a big fan of the movie. This was a repetitive series of, we're going to revisit our past, tell us something about our future, and that Paul Giamatti Black Mirror episode a couple of months ago did this way better. Significantly better. Maybe if I wouldn't have seen that and I watched this movie without that context, I don't know though, because there's just so much cheese. And honestly, not great chemistry between Farrell and Robbie. I think Farrell and Robbie are good in this film, but there's a difference between giving a good performance and having chemistry with the person that we are supposed to believe they share this bond between them that is supposed to grab us and take us throughout this entire film and lead us on this existential journey. Today, Junior! Now, if you're vibing with this film, I think you're really going to like it and have a good time with this. If you are kind of giggling at the level of cheese that they are going for and you're not on board with the script, which was kind of me, you're going to roll your eyes the entire time, even though you are getting some nice moments, especially towards the end. So I'll give it that, but I won't give it a good tier. I'm going to give it a bad tier. Code 3. A burned-out paramedic has 24 hours left at this job that you kind of feel like he despises because of what it puts him through on a daily basis. Played by Rainn Wilson, he's training a new recruit. It also has Laurel Howery, and I saw this and I'm just like, I need 12 movies this month. So let's watch Code 3, and I'll be honest with you, by the time it was over, I'm thinking, why is more people not talking about this film? I'm not saying it's great. I'm just saying I saw the premise and I saw kind of the trailer to it. I didn't know what the tone was going to be. It definitely goes for something a little comedic. He does the thing where he's talking to the camera at the beginning of the film, and so I'm kind of rolling my eyes like, all right, what is this going to be? But you actually go through some things with Rainn Wilson's character throughout this movie where he's put through the trials, the rigors of this job that, is so important, but at the same time, he doesn't get treated with the respect by other staff members, by those around him who are getting paid a lot more. And there's this funny thing that they do at the beginning with the salaries of the different. I'm just like, all right, this is a little weird, but I kind of like it. Hey.
That's pretty good.
It had this TV movie vibe at the beginning, but the more I watched it, the more I'm thinking, no, this is actually a very interesting character study of a guy who's just at the end, he's at his wit's end all the way through, but you get to experience these things with him and some true, like, really sad moments in this film, but he's just got to move on to the next thing because that's what a paramedic does. And I'm thinking, okay, this actually has something sweet, charming, nice to say. They do some character reveals at the end that, weren't super effective, but I actually appreciate what this movie was going for. And the tone going up and down, a little all over the place at times, that didn't bother me because the emotions, when they hit, they actually hit pretty hard. And I watched Code 3, honest to God, thinking, this is just for me to do this list. I'm going to have 12 movies. By the end of it, I ended up liking it more than all the movies we talked about so far but one. So if you're looking for a movie to watch, Code 3, Rainn Wilson, Lil Rel Howery, not too bad. All of you on Apple TV Plus, Imogen Poots, Brett Goldstein, my God, chemistry for days. Do you want an adult, like, romantic movie that has, we were talking about chemistry a while ago not working. This chemistry works, and they're not obviously on the levels of Colin Farrell, Margot Robbie as stars, but my goodness, man, you can't help just but to fall in love with these two. The problem is they were best friends for the longest time. Never tried to make it work between them. And then we meet up. This movie does an interesting job of skipping time without really telling you that it's skipping time, but you can pick up through the context clues. At first, it bugged me, but then I'm like, wait a second, I really like that. I like when a movie doesn't just sit there and preach to you and say, hey, here's what's going on. You're just kind of vibing with it, and you can figure it out on your own. A movie that trusts its audience. I like that. So you pick up with them throughout the years, and she's in a relationship. He's got things going on, and then all of a sudden they're like, could we try to make this work? And, part of me is like, you don't want to ruin a marriage, but another part of me is like, God, they're so good. They clearly love each other. Sometimes things happen, and sometimes life doesn't go the way that you want it to go, but it is for the best. But maybe for the best doesn't mean you are happy. And so, and the way this movie leaves you off is not going to satisfy everybody. And I'm not saying that because it ends up bad. I'm just saying that because there's a little mystery there to where you're kind of like, oh, well, and I've seen some people complain about that, and I completely understand. But I kind of like that because it is as honest and true and real. And as much as you're rooting for them, I'm still sitting back thinking, I mean, there's a family, there are kids involved, and so I'm like, morally, but then I'm like, but the chemistry, it's set in this weird future where everybody's using this dating service to kind of find the perfect relationship, that romance, and there's some things about that didn't quite work, and maybe the pacing's a little off at times. It is a little repetitive. She leaves, he leaves. But by the end, I'm like, this is actually really mature. And I like the Materialists, but I would say this is a more mature look. I mean, that movie, it didn't truly capture what I wanted to capture, even though I liked it, and I liked this as well. I would just say this is a more, how many times am I going to say mature? I just shut up. Quit repeating yourself, like this movie. So, surprisingly, all of you goes on the good tier for me. Relay. Riz Ahmed. Now, I looked at this film and said, David Mackenzie? I'm a huge fan of David Mackenzie. Why didn't I review this movie when it came out? Because I'm dumb. I think it came out a couple of months ago, finally dropped on VOD. I saw it and I said, well, that makes 12. But you've got Lily James. She's trying to out this company, but she doesn't really know how to do it. And so she contacts the service that sets her up with Riz Ahmed's character, who's like this very secretive dude, basically a world-class fixer, and he specializes in brokering lucrative payoffs between corrupt corporations and the individuals who threaten There's a lot going on there. And so you're trying to keep up with the verbiage and how they're communicating with each other, what exactly she's trying to do. But at the end of the day, that really doesn't matter. It's more about the suspense of how she does it rather than the beans that she's trying to spill. She's trying to spill the beans. And they're like, don't you spill our beans. And Riz Ahmed says, I'm going to be secretive and I'm going to let you do it, but you're going to get some money out of it. So as this movie goes, you're like, should she be doing the right thing? Is she doing the right thing? How is Ahmed's character always one step ahead of all of these others? He's got some very interesting things about his character, and I kind of wish I would have done a full review because there's a lot to say about this film, but it's all about suspense. It's all about keeping you on your heels. There are a couple of turns that I've seen a lot of people say they liked, and I don't know how to feel about, especially one towards the end where I'm like, oh, I didn't see it coming. but I don't know if I like that.
I mean, it's all right. Like,
I also don't know if I love the destination, but the journey getting there. I mean, I was so invested in where this was going to go constantly at every single turn. Now, when you get to that ultimate climactic moment, it's not maybe the first climactic moment, then you're like, you kind of want to go back through the movie and see if it actually works, and that's where I start to question things, and this film was really on pace to being on the great tier until that, to when I finally sat down and looked at it, I'm like, okay, maybe good tier. Maybe not quite as good as I initially thought, but Relay is thrilling. David Mackenzie is a good director, and especially Riz Ahmed is awesome. Sam Worthington's pretty menacing, too. I'm going good tier for Relay. Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. If you haven't watched Demon Slayer, you're going to have no clue what I'm talking about, so tune me out for the next minute, all right? This had everything I wanted as a fan of this franchise, who recently caught up on the newest season, who's very excited for part 2, who got such a sweet experience watching all of these, specifically the visuals on display. This Infinity Castle laid out like a Christopher Nolan creation, like I was watching Interstellar or Inception. The set design, production design, animation, the fight sequences, obviously. Now, it does a lot of giving us flashbacks for characters, exploring those flashbacks, and prolonging them to where it does kind of compromise the pacing at points, but all of those moments you want to see with the characters that you know and love who are lost in this Infinity Castle, who have to find their ways back to each other, and each individual moment is so cool for fans of the franchise. I'm emotionally attached, but I can't believe how emotional I was feeling while watching this movie. Tanjiro and Zenitsu and all of these characters that you know and love from the series, but then those moments that you're really looking forward to that are just delivered one thing after another, trying not to reveal spoilers here, but all in anticipation for part 2, and that's where it kind of leaves you off. And so, yeah, as a fan, I'm a fan of this, and I can't wait to see the next. The pacing is probably what keeps it from awesome, but I'm still going great, which is great for a part 1. And then finally, Paul Thomas Anderson, one battle after another. Leo, Sean Penn, who's a menacing man, and then all of these other actors, some of them I'm just not really familiar with. Like, who the heck is Chase Infinity? I don't know who is she? And then she's keeping up with Leo, and she's keeping up with some of these other performances, her versus Sean Penn at a point in the film, and the focal point of this movie is something I can't really talk about, because once that comes into focus, you're like, oh, so that's what this is. And then the final, 45 minutes, it's just an action-packed, edge-of-your-seat chase sequence that features an incredible car chase, or series of car chases, and some moments where you're like, this is a Paul Thomas Anderson is an auteur director. So it's an auteur director making an action spectacle mixed with a political, satirical kind of parody type movie, but it's also reflecting our current society that is reflecting a story based on the 80s, because unfortunately, as we know, history repeats itself. We've had revolutionaries in the past going up against the system and the fascists, as it says in this movie, but it's so strange because all in all, the reception critically and audience-wise has been great, but you still have those who are adoring it and loving it because of its political stance and statement, which I find weird. And then you've got those who are revolting against it and standing and not going to see this movie because of its political side, even though I don't think it's that kind of movie that's going to push anyone away. It clearly takes a side, but it's a movie in which every character is flawed, and this entire thing is messy, and this entire revolution, I mean, we see where Leo's character is later on in this film, and he's in a horrible, horrible place. And so the way that it approaches all of this, I don't know if this movie is exactly what some critics early on has made it out to be. And I love it for that. But like PTA just said, it is a fictional, politically satirical work that he just wants people to go out and enjoy. And so I'm just looking at all sides of this and I'm like, I just think some people are using this to engage in politics when really this movie, I mean, the satire point of view on Sean Penn's character is brilliant, but if you actually look at what it's trying to say, I don't think it's doing that.
Pure fiction. It's fiction. It's fiction.
But what it is doing is giving you these characters that you can latch onto in the midst of all of this madness, and it gives you this father-daughter story between Chase Infinity's character and Leo's character, Bob Ferguson, who can't for the life of him remember the password of this group that he's trying to serve or whatever. They play that for comedy. It was brilliant. I was laughing the entire time. So edge of your seat, action-packed. I was laughing. Sean Penn is menacing, little cartoonish, but I didn't mind that. It kind of goes with the vibe of what that side of the story is bringing. A very evil man. By the way, God, if somebody like that was coming after my daughter, I'd stand up and knock him right in the... Son of a bitch! I've said what I need to say. I'm going awesome tier, but I do want you to know it's not a 10 out of 10 for me. There are a couple of pacing issues here and there. It does start slow in the first 30 minutes, and so I have yet to have a 10 out of 10 movie in 2025. Will a movie get there for me? Am I being stubborn? Am I a clown?
I don't know.
I need your thoughts down below. There's a hype button. I would appreciate it if you hit that. Still don't know what it does. Share this video. Leave a comment. I appreciate y'all being here. Let's have a great October where we really start diving into Oscars. Awful tier. Strangers Chapter 2. That movie sucks. Next up, I think I'm going to keep it the way it is. I actually had him at the top, but the more I think about it, the more I get disappointed. And Willem Dafoe in a basement. You can't hate that too much. On the meh tier, Conjuring. On the okay tier, Michael Chiklis playing football. On the good tier. Even though I had fun with it, I'm going to say Code 3 at the bottom here, followed by, this is tough. I'm going to say Relay is slightly above all of you. So Relay at 4, all of you right behind it at 5. Number 3, obviously, Demon Slayer. Now we have 2 and 1, and I know what you guys are thinking. It's obviously Paul Thomas Anderson, but guys, I loved The Long Walk. So this is tougher than it looks, but I think I'm going one battle after another at the top. Come on, there it is. At the top here, and that makes for an okay top 3. I like it when the top 3 is all on one tier. I like it when we've got 3 awesomes. I don't even know if that's happened this year. But my number 3, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle. Number 2, The Long Walk. And number 1, one battle after another. That's a rock solid top 3 movies. Demon Slayer crushed it at the box office. I wish it wouldn't have been as spread out this month. Obviously, a lot of bad and some mediocre in there. And so we're all over the place, a wide spectrum of films. There's plenty that I did not watch. We're getting into screener season, and so I'm starting to get all of these screeners for movies. I've already got The Lost Bus that I need to watch. Netflix is about to send some things. So October, it's going to be, what do the kids say? Lit. It's going to be lit. Litty titty. Okay, bye-bye.